Hello everyone, welcome to Chessvisor. In today's video, I'm going to show you the game played between Jakhongir Vakhidov from Uzbekistan and Roman Shogdzheiv from Russia. This particular game was played in the World Rapid Championship round number 1, where this little kid, that is 8-year-old kid, he shocked the entire world. So without much delay, let's get started. With the white pieces, Vakhidov starts the game with the 1 c4, and the game eventually transposed into the exchange variation of the Slav. So after bishop f4, knight f6, closing down the pawn chain, and then knight goes to the natural square. Generally, when you play the queen's pawn opening, this is a small note you have to remember. So when you have this c pawn sitting on c7, you always want to put the knight on d7 so that you won't be blocking your c pawn, so that it will be moving forward. But in this case, since the c pawn has been exchanged off early, then your knight is going to go to the natural square. So that is a little difference you have to know here. So bishop d3 and then bishop g4, and here white denotes that he's going to expand on the king side and try to do the early king side attacks. So it's a general idea when you face a weaker opponent. So okay, in this position the bishop was dropped back to d7. Anyway, let me complete that one. Okay, so when you face the weaker opponent, the stronger player will always try to do the attack and then try to win the game immediately, right? So that is what actually he is denoting. Since it was a rapid game, anything could happen. So after bishop d7, in this position, if you want to read the bishop back to h5, that is very much possible. But he goes to d7, knight c3, plays into the natural square, e6, and then pawn to g4. So as we expected, bishop e7 and then knight g e2. Even after knight g e2, it is very much clear that white is going to push the pawns on the king side and try to do the king side attack. But by this move, so Roman played castling on the king side with a brave decision I think he made, and he invites the king side attack. Okay, but here in this position he goes king f2, just trying to do the artificial castling. Knight to e8, rerouting knight there to the center of the board. h4, trying to attack on the king side. So knight to d6, trying to jump in the center later, and then a3. After a3, here Roman strikes in the center with the move pawn to f5, trying to open up the f file so that he can try to attack the king. So pawn to g5 and then rook to c8, queen to c2, forming the little battery. Knight a5, trying to jump in the c4 square, so that is blocked now. Bishop e8, it looks like a passive move for black, but however it is like controlling two sides of the board with the light squares. So queen b2, and then here we have b5. So in this position, if you want to put the bishop on h5, you can play, but the problem is the knight will immediately come and kick you. So that's not possible immediately, but later part of the game it was a possibility. Rook a1, a6, and now with the last a6 move, Roman says there is no attack, or there is nothing you can do in the queen side, because any one pawn advance is going to benefit black only because of giving up this light square on the queen side. That will pave the way for the knight's way, knight's post. So bishop g3 and the knight e4 check. This is a brilliant move actually, knight e4 check. Why it's a brilliant move? So considering the consequences, Vakhidov played bishop into the knight. Okay, what is the problem if I capture it? It's very easy for the calculation. F into e4, and now is just hitting the bishop back, and also there is a discovery. But you might be thinking about, okay, what is there? King to g2. The problem is after e takes d3, the knight is hit, that you have to move the knight, but black can follow it up with another brilliant move, that is rook takes f4. After e into f4, I can go bishop g6 and guard this pawn. It's very difficult for white to recover the pawn, because the pawn sits on the light square and you have a dark square, dark square bishop, and it will be difficult for this knight to reroute and attack the pawn. And also black has this bishop pair, as well as look at the king's position. So that's why black is clearly better in this position. So going back, considering this, he plays bishop into e4 and then f into e4, but this time the knight comes and blocks this attack. For the time being, there is this pin available on this knight. It's called situational pin, so we don't have to worry about knight taking on e6. However, Roman plays bishop d7 here to protect the pawn. So going back in this position, there was one interesting line which I would like to highlight here, that is bishop to d6. Why it's an interesting idea? It's because okay, nobody is going to take here, because there is check, and then the bishop is going to fall, okay, in the next move. what is the problem in taking e6? Because you are hitting the queen, right? So it's very tempting to do that. If you do this move, knight takes e6, then rook takes f3 comes with the check, and you don't want to go into the g2 square where your opponent is going to pick up the bishop with a check. So you don't have to do that, right? So king e2 if you play, then I can sacrifice the queen by playing rook takes g3 in this position. uh, Sorry, bishop takes g3, not rook takes g3, and if you greedily captures the queen and the game is over. If you want to pause the video and try to solve this one, so black to play and win the game. So not only you are going to recover the queen back and you will be a piece up, and also you will be in a mating attack, so that you can like 5 to 6 moves you can checkmate actually. Rook f2 check, and then king d1, and then you take the queen back, and now you are a whole piece up in this position. And example, okay, the knight is hit. Let's say you bring the knight back into the game, then bishop h5 check, and then knight blacks, and then bishop takes knight would be a beautiful checkmate. So same mating pattern is available for any other moves also. Even say for example, even if you consider this move, if you black the bishop, that's very logic, right? And then we can go knight takes b3 hitting the other rook, and once the rook challenges the rook, we can do this one. So we do another sacrifice, rook takes c3, giving up another rook. So if you once you take, and then we can play this move, bishop takes h5, deflecting the key defender from the back rank, and once you take, I can go on the back rank, check you, and then I can checkmate you. So this is the problem in this type of variation, where you greedily capture the pawn on e6, fork the rook as well as the queen. Even if you grab the queen, this is the problem. So considering this, okay, I didn't pay that move actually in the game, so he plays bishop d7. That was an option. So f into e4, then now the knight is in the pin, so he plays d into e4, and then king to g2, so unpins the king away, e5, and then he plays d into e5. So here after d into e5, he plays bishop g4, threatening to give this 4. But last few moves, the made by black, it was like a mistakes. So now white is slightly better. So now he gets out of the danger, and he's looking forward to attack the black. Say for example, the rooks are connected, they can come to the open files very easily. For the time being, the bishop is guarding the square, but all the pieces are active, okay, except the bishop. So let's see what happens. So knight c d5, so puts the knights in the center. So queen to d7, and here already rook takes c8 is a winning move for white. It's because you cannot take back with the queen because of the fork. So if you take with the rook, I can land on b6 with the fork. But in the game, he simply missed that, and he played king h2 because he was threatening this one. But we could have went with that one. So bishop f3 played anyway after that. So pawn to e6, and then queen b7, rook into c8, rook into c8, and then rook c1. So again, white is in a clear winning position. Rook into c1, and then queen takes c1. Now the problem, the pawn was actually weak, but now if you see, this pawn is a menacing pawn, and is just 2 moves away from queening. So that is the problem in this position. So he plays bishop d6, trying to guard this one, as well as trying to put pressure on this bishop. Okay, so queen to d2. So now the bishop is undefended, so he has to do something about it. Say for example, you have to defend the bishop or retreat the bishop somewhere, but then the pawn runs. So he plays knight c6, and then he plays this brilliant move, that is knight f6 check, g into f6, and then queen takes d6. So after f takes g5, in this position there is only one move, or like a few moves available for white to consolidate and win the game. But in the game, he hurried and played this move, knight to d5. It's very natural. So okay, the knight is covering the square, why don't I cover that square with my knight, and then push forward with my pawn and win the game. So it's very natural for us to do that, right? But it was a mistake in the game, and now black has a chance to come back in the game, and that was played the stockfish move. Top recommended move was played by Roman in this position. So going back, I would like to highlight what white could have done rather than playing this move, knight to d5. What he should have done is, instead of knight to d5, you could have played maybe h takes g5. So in this position, h takes g5, when I play queen to g7, that was played in that particular variation in the game. So queen to g7, threatening to go on to b2, and then checkmate, try to checkmate. But the knight is covering this square now for the time. Say for example, your knight is hanging. If I take the knight, queen b2 check, and then after king h3, there is no mate. Even if you go to the corner, let's say you go here, but already you are getting checkmated. So queen e8, king g7, and then to the corner queen f8 would be a checkmate. So that's why in this position, instead of hurrying with knight to d5, you could have played this move, so that is h takes g5 and then just a waiting move. But in the game, unfortunately, knight to d5 was played, but now Roman found this move, queen g7, the zigzag queen walk, and then bishop f2, queen g into h4, threatening checkmate again. So this time knight f4 goes back. That's why you see the a problem now. The knight actually retreats back to cover the square. So that is why the knight d5 was a mistake. So queen to b2, threatening to checkmate again. So that is guarded now. The bishop is guarded. Queen to g7 again, threatening checkmate. And here a couple of times the position was repeated, but the third time he went to the corner again. He is threatening mate. So to cover that square, he plays knight g2, but he comes up with another move, that is queen f1, again threatening checkmate. So every move was like, last few moves, like 3 or 4 moves, was a mating attack. So he escaped till this point, but not now, because he played knight takes h4. Now this is a time for us to pause the video and try to checkmate white in just 4 or 5 moves. So he played queen takes f2 check. It's very natural to take the bishop and deliver the check, and then king goes to the h3 square, and then queen to f1 check, and then king back to h2, and then queen to a1 is a beautiful, not a checkmate yet, because king g3, and then queen to g1 check, and then king back to h3, but this time bishop delivers a beautiful checkmate on g4 square. So I hope you enjoy this quick review of this game. So with this win, actually this was the first win by Roman in World Rapid Championship, because it was round number 1, and he went on to win one more Grandmaster from Norway, and he drew against 3 Grandmasters, and also he beat 2 International Masters. And if you see his performance, he was rated around 2042 at the beginning of the tournament, but at the end of the tournament his rating was pumped around 200. As you can see, I have mentioned the new rating. This is his new rating with over 2400 performance rating. So that was it with Roman. So he has an incredible future in chess. I hope he will achieve the title with a less age, I guess. So what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Still, if you're not subscribed to my YouTube channel, consider subscribing the channel. As usual, this is Chessvisor, your wise choice to improve your chess.